Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, alameen. This is Abu Muneer Ismail Davids for our second session of the Hajj talk that we had. We had one last Sunday, alhamdulillah. It was quite enjoyable, reminiscing about Hajj and the memories and the lessons we learned from Hajj. And we had quite a big crowd tonight. We had to call in some ring-ins because a few of the people couldn't make it. But alhamdulillah, we have some good guests here tonight. I have Brother Farouk was on with us on Sunday, Muneer. I have Brother Firaz, who's been on Hajj with me twice. Alhamdulillah. We have Sister Tazin and Brother Abdullah, who went on Hajj with me last year. Alhamdulillah. So before we start, we wanted to share with you. So tonight is like we kept on talking about how we're going to miss Hajj this year and how sad it's going to be. But tonight is really, today actually, is really when it started hitting home, because today being the 8th of Dhul Hijjah is the first day of Hajj, and you really, really, now the reality sets in that, yep, you're not there. And there was always that deep down hope of something might happen and we could go, but now it's too late. Being the 8th of Dhul Hijjah tonight, what I'm going to do is share a quick video with you that everybody's sitting around now to show you the tawaf the people are making and the social distancing and the nice methodology that's applied there. I wish they can keep that, maybe not that social distancing, but at least the ease of making tawaf, where especially for the sisters and the elderly, coronavirus is teaching us how we can and should behave when it comes to Allah's house and making the tawaf. So Farouk, can you just show that?
لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك إن الحمد والنعمة لك والملك لا شريك لك لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك إن الحمد والنعمة لك والملك لا شريك.
Just that kind of video is going all over the place, where everybody's looking at it and seeing that, and it just really, really hits home. Not being there and just seeing how empty the haram is, and hoping and wishing that we could be there. So on the night of 8th of Dhul Hijjah, this is generally where on the day we will be in Mina. So Farouk, you want to put up some photos of Mina? And Mina's normally a very, very hectic day on the 8th of Dhul Hijjah, where everybody moves from either Makkah or Azizia, moving to Mina for the day, where we spend the whole day in Mina. And generally, it can be chaotic because all the buses and everything moves into Mina, and people are looking for their tents and their spots, and they're getting used to the bathrooms, and they're getting used to the heat and being on the outside. And just show us some of that air conditioning units there, Farouk. Because this time of the year it's like 40, 45, 50 degrees in Saudi. So this is the air conditioning units, and in the tents where we are normally in, there's about a couple of thousand people in the area, and these air conditioners normally, I think they just turn them on probably an hour before we get there, and there's generally one electrician walking around trying to fix all of these. And it's a very stressful day for the organizers, but alhamdulillah, in the end, by the evening side, which is there, you'll see that everybody's relaxed and calm, getting ready for tomorrow, which is Arafah day, the biggest day of Hajj. And I think so there everybody's having al-Baik.
Relaxation before Arafah.
This is the relaxation with al-Baik, getting ready for the big day. And then everybody, for those who have not lived in Saudi, don't know the al-Baik story. So everybody that's been there and been there many years waiting for al-Baik. So for those who haven't had it before and they say, is this all? What's this all about? So yes, so you want to show that photo, Farouk, quickly while we wait for somebody else on that. So there was this massive storm last year that blew off the actual cloth off the Kaaba. And this is amazing pictures. of the cloth actually coming off from the Kaaba itself. Um, it's just
SubhanAllah.
it's just for those who, everybody today, everybody was talking about being there. All the group leaders, everybody was talking. I was talking to our group from our world today, the owners, and they were saying that people are sending WhatsApp messages around like we pretending we're on Hajj. Hey guys, the bus is outside. The bus is waiting. Your bus number so and so, and people were just like. And I was talking to one of my close friends who's always been for a while, and I said to him, "How are you doing?" He said, "I'm struggling. I'm struggling." So, yep, alhamdulillah, for the next 2 days, I think we are going to struggle. Okay, so without further ado, I'd like to introduce Brother Faraz, Brother Tazin, Sister Tazin, and Brother Abdullah. Faraz, so you've been on Hajj with me twice. So I'd like for you to share with us which years you've been, and start with. I'd like you to share the story of when you went on the airplane on your first trip.
On the airplane.
Well,
Yeah,
the
so I've
first
been
time we
on.
met. First time we met.
So the first time, first time Ismail and I met was at Sydney Airport, just on my first trip, which was in 2005, December 2005. I was petrified, and not having hung around so many religious people in my upbringing. Mum and Dad prayed and did all the right things, but I saw Brother Ismail with a beard, and I felt very intimidated at the time. And he had his thobe on, and I was about to embark on this journey. As Ismail says, it's a journey of a lifetime, and I was absolutely terrified. I wasn't sure if I should have been going. I wasn't sure if I was ready, and I was pretty sure that I was going to fail. But my fears around Brother Ismail himself were allayed when he started cracking jokes, and I looked at him and I thought, "Oh, hang on a second, he's not as serious as what I thought he would be." And to your credit, Ismail, you made my trip memorable and enjoyable and a lot of fun, to be honest. I still remember the trips on the bus where you'd be cracking jokes. And the reason why you and I have become close friends ever since is because I was the only one laughing at your jokes. Um, but yeah, memorable times. And the second time I think I went on Hajj with you was in 2012. 2012, yep.
Do you remember how many bus trips we took in 2012? So what happens is, for those who don't know, on the morning, like which is tomorrow morning, when we move from Mina to Arafah, they have what they call a shuttle bus service, where they shuttle the pilgrims from Mina to Arafah, and you have to draw a lot in the evening, and whatever your turn is. So if your turn is turn 5 or turn 20, that's the groups go into that order to Mina. But in our travel, we had the luxury that year of having our own buses. So we had two small buses, and I couldn't find anybody else, and I'm not sure how it ended up. But Firaz was on the other bus, and I was in the one bus, and we started shuttling the people back and forth from Mina to Arafah. And I think we did about 10 or 15 trips back and forth. Alhamdulillah.
Yep.
So we have Brother Yusuf joining us there, and he performed Hajj with me in 2008, right, Yusuf?
Yeah,
How's my memory?
2008. 2008, that's right.
2008. Good memory. Alhamdulillah. So we just started, and Prophet Raz just kind of introduced us on his first journey and the first time he met me. So let me go to Sister Tazin and Brother Abdullah. So last year was your first time on Hajj, and when I met you the first time, you both looked very, very scared as well. You had that worried look on your face. So tell us, what was your first impressions and thoughts, and when you embarked on this journey? Sorry, Sister Tazin, we can't hear you. There's no. Yep, we can't hear your sound. Yeah, maybe your mic. You'll have to do sign language. Try you're using your phone, right? All right, we'll get Brother Farouk to see if he can help you through working on that in the back. So we'll switch to Brother Yusuf there for a moment. So Farouk, can you just see if we can help them sort out the sound? Brother Yusuf.
Yep.
So tell us, what was your most memorable moment for your Hajj? It wasn't your first time 2008, was it?
No, it was my third Hajj, alhamdulillah.
Third Hajj, alhamdulillah. So what was your most memorable Hajj of the three? Which one do you regard as your best one, and why?
All right. Okay. Well, definitely 2008. Why? Because it was probably the easiest Hajj compared to the first one, which I did in 1990. I think the first Hajj was. And then I did not want to suffer. I got married in 96. But things had progressed, and alhamdulillah, compared to the first and the second one, it was like a cakewalk. It was just absolute, I wouldn't say absolute luxury, but compared to the first one that we had, it was absolute luxury. So it was easy. And the best thing about it was, all of your connections, because there was someone who was behind Umu, my wife, all the time. Sarika sister, where are you? So I just sort of traveled and ran behind everyone else, and alhamdulillah, got special privileges as we went along.
Alhamdulillah, I remember that.
Alhamdulillah. And what do you think is the most difficult moment during the Hajj for you?
Well, being in Ihram is the most difficult moment for me. In that period, just the circumstances of being in Ihram is the most difficult. That's a personal thing. Other than that, I think everything else is pretty much okay. But just the mere fact, the restrictions on Ihram and wearing the Ihram and everything else, for me, that's the hardest part. Other than that, I pretty much enjoyed and loved every other part of it. This time around, I love being in Medina the most because I didn't really socialize too much. I just tried to spend as much time as I could in the Haram. I completed whatever I wanted to complete in terms of reading the Quran and everything else. So that was fantastic.
Firaz, you're a pretty organized guy, but if there's one thing you wish you could have taken with you, what would that have been? And that you didn't take? Or but your wife does the packing anyway, so doesn't she?
You're right, she does. For me, it would have been more patience.
Okay.
I might be an organized person, but not a very patient one. It's not a virtue that I possess, but I learned a lot. The funny thing was that when I embarked on Hajj, my personality changed during that trip. You became better, or you became worse? Oh, wow, that's very objective. No, but it was more about I changed because I left myself to the will of Allah. One of the comments that was made to me on my first Hajj as I was leaving was by a brother that had gone a couple of years before with my parents, and he came to me and he was in tears, and I looked at him and I'm thinking, what's wrong with you? Why are you crying? He said, well, next year when you come back and you can't go next year, you'll be crying. And I said to him, look, I don't buy any of that. I've just got to get this done. I see myself failing, but I'm going to give it my best shot. My biggest fear was, what if I've spent this money and this time, less about the money, but more about the time and effort, and Allah does not accept this of me? That was my biggest fear. And he sort of relaxed me a bit, because he said, think about it in terms of there's 5 to 6 billion people on the planet, and 4 million people get to go on this, or 2 million people get to go on this journey. And Allah, out of all his creation, has thought of you personally, and he has extended the invitation to you. And that, as he said that comment to me, my fears were allayed, because I realized that when you're invited and you're a guest, the host will look after you. And so that was a real striking moment for me. But in terms of what I'd take more of, would definitely be patience. I learned a lot of patience during Hajj. But the best way to be patient during Hajj is just to go with the flow. And this was the other bit of advice that brother gave me. He said, no matter who comes to you or asks you to go, I'll take you over here in the Haram, or I'll show you this, or let's go and do this bit of ibadah. He said, "Go and do it, because your doors are opening for you." And that left a lasting impression on me.
So tell me, Faraz, what is that prompted you to go for Hajj? What is that the thing that said, okay, I need to go for Hajj now?
Okay, so I went to Hajj when I was 26. So if I wind the clock back to when I was 16, you're looking at somebody that was thinking of other religions, put it that way. And then when I was 19, my life changed for the worse. And no matter how much I fasted, no matter how much I prayed, my life got worse. And I remember standing in my parents' living room and looking to the heavens and saying to the Almighty that no matter what you do for me, whatever you throw my way, it doesn't matter. I won't stop fasting. I won't stop praying. I'm ready to be broken. It got to that point. And then 3 weeks after that, when I was 19, my life turned around. I was 20 by this stage. And it started to skyrocket continuously. And then I realized the more I prayed, the more I benefited. And then it came to me as a realization that I've got to take this next step. And the thing with people going on Hajj is that's all they ever talk about when they come back. They'll go travel the world, they'll go see everything else, they'll experience life. and honestly, that's all they talk about. And that was my parents. My parents went for Hajj, and every time I sat with them, they'd tell me a Hajj story. And they'd reinforce the importance of Hajj. And, we'd do the praying and the salah and everything else. And one afternoon after leaving my mum's place, I was driving home with Susan. I looked at her and I said, we're going for Hajj this year. And she looked at me absolutely shocked. She said, I'm not ready. And I said, yeah, you are. And I said, we've got the money, we can do this, let's go. And yeah, one thing led to another, and off we were to Hajj, and that's where I met you at absolutely petrified at Mascot Airport. My wife was calm, but I was absolutely stressed. And I don't get stressed, but I was terrified. But yeah, I came through a bit of a journey, and I remember standing in front of the Kaaba, and the story I just recounted to you as when I was a 16-year-old boy looking to transition to a different faith, because of the goodness I saw in another faith, due to a lack of understanding of my own. And I recounted this story to my wife in front of the Kaaba. I said, 10 years ago, I was looking at knocking on the door of another faith, and yet Allah has dragged me 10 years later to be at His house. What greater gift could I possibly have been given? So after that point, I really haven't asked Allah for much.
Alhamdulillah, that's amazing. It just shows you the power of the deen, and may Allah continue to protect you, my brother.
Ameen.
You need to keep an eye out for your kids so they don't go through the same thing, and try to make sure you measure that at least. Alhamdulillah. So as you said, people often say to people like, once people go for Hajj and they come back, that's all they talk about. I mean, I'm sure if you talk to Yusuf about NRL, he'll talk about Sunny Bull wanting to go for Hajj and all of those sorts of things. Like, it's always, people just turn the story, no matter how you look at it, they'll turn the story to Hajj. Alhamdulillah. Tazin and Abdullah, have you guys sorted out your sound?
I think so. Assalamu alaikum.
Very, very good. Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Talk to us. Tell me, what is the thing that drove you to, what made you decide to go for Hajj?
You go ahead.
You want me? It had been on the cards for a long time. We had kept talking about it, and I think Allah just made it happen last year. He just made it happen,
So who dragged who?
I think it was more her than me. To be honest, I went to Hajj in 1983, 84. I was living in Dubai with my parents, and my parents packed me in the back of the car. We drove for 3 days from Dubai all the way to Medina. It was a very different. What's striking is I don't remember a lot from those. I was very, very young, but I remember the Kaaba very, very clearly, and I remember
when you were driving to Medina. How many times did you say, "Are we there yet?"
Yeah, I think we were a lot more patient than my kids are. I think with me, because we didn't have
the iPad to keep
to keep us. I don't know how we managed 3 days, because if you've been there, I mean, you've been there. It's nothing but just desert for days, you know. So, but I remember that. And to be honest, I didn't think I would go to Hajj that last year. I thought I would go when I was ready or when I really wanted to. And I never really wanted to. And I felt I was betraying the sanctity of the place, of going there and not wanting to go there. And I had personal reasons for that. So I did it mainly for her. And by the end of the trip, I realized that the reason I went was I needed to get something that I wasn't even looking for. That I was looking for something else, and I was planning for something, but I got something else. And what I got out of it was what I actually needed, but didn't realize that I needed, if that makes sense.
Yeah. For me, those things resonate similar to Firaz's story then. And I think people, if people can just understand like how Hajj can change your life and the mercy of Allah to, because it to be invited for Hajj is something special, but to be invited to be sort of protected or saved from the thing that you might go on the wrong path. So Allah invites you and Allah brings you to His home, closer to Him, and say, "Here's your chance. Here's your opportunity." That is what's so special, and people don't actually realize that. And I see many people go through that, because when I do my lectures and talks, I say to people, whoever is forcing the other one to go, don't worry about it, because it's very often you get people, both couples are ready to go, but most of the time one of the couple is ready and is dragging the other one. And the worst story I've had in this particular scenario was the brother just didn't want to go, and his wife dragged him along, and he asked us even if he could stay in Jeddah during the Hajj days. Like, that's how desperate he is. He just said, I just don't want to go, right? Can I stay in Jeddah, right? And similar to the stories, but when you get there, Allah just changes your heart for you. And that's like sort of Allah giving you hidayah when people, and if you think about it, it's our parents, it's our children, it's those closest to us that's making that dua, because they know what is it that you need, So it's probably Tazin that's made that dua for you, for Allah to give you that and accepted that dua. So on Sunday we spoke about some of the brothers, and they spoke about how they've never actually appreciated and understood and really seen duas being accepted. Like the stuff they asked for in Arafah and coming back and seeing that coming to life is just amazing. So Tazin, tell me, what was your most memorable moment during your trip?
My most memorable moment was, I think, in Medina. It was the second day or the third day that I had prayed Fajr at the Prophet's Mosque, and I was about to make my dua, and I said to Allah Ta'ala, you know what I want. Everything I desire in my heart, you have known from, time that I cannot calculate. You know everything. What should I ask you for? And God put words in my mouth in terms of what I needed to ask Him, because God knows what we need better than we do ourselves. And it was magical, because whatever I needed to really ask for, as His servant, I think He put into words for me. And that moment I hold on to, because I said, tell me what to ask you, and He told me what to ask Him. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. Brother Yusuf, if you have to do Hajj again, inshallah, what would you do differently, if anything?
What would I? I don't think I'll do anything differently. I'd like to take the rest of the family with me. That'd probably be something I'd like to do. Maybe take the kids with. And given that we've been,
would you spend more time in the Haram? Do you feel like when you were there, you exploited the time, or you feel like, I wish I spent more time?
Well, alhamdulillah, the fact that I went on the third time, I sort of learned from my first two Hajjs. So on this last Hajj, and I went with you in 2008, I wasn't very social. I didn't hang out with the boys. I didn't speak to anyone. I barely spent time with my wife. Whatever time I had was in the Haram. and I had certain goals, and I wanted to read the Quran by a certain date, and I wanted to do all these things, and alhamdulillah, I managed to do all those things. And I sort of saw that, one of the benefits, well, actually maybe the benefit of going with your wife is, firstly, you can share all that with them. But the other thing, if you're going with all the boys, which a lot of guys do, all the boys go, and it's fantastic, all the brotherhood and stuff like that. But then you sink into that hole of having to be very social. And when you're social with all those different things, you lose time. And time is so important because you've got such limited time. So I don't think I'll change anything. But if I could, I'd love to take the kids with.
Alhamdulillah. Yep. And so in the last few years, last year there was a family with 4 kids, and the year before there was also a family with 4 kids, and the children doesn't want to go. So both instances, when I went to the Hajj lecture, the parents said, "Can you please talk to these kids?" And they were all like teenagers studying at uni, etc. And alhamdulillah, in both instances, I managed to convince all 8 kids, so to speak, to go with their parents. And then they just looked at me with big eyes when I was talking to them. Said, "Oh, I better go. This guy looks like he's going to threaten us if we don't." But then when we were there and we're talking to them afterwards, the family last year, we met at the airport leaving. When we had drama checking in, we were just having a chat, and they were just so appreciative of the fact that they actually ended up going. So, Tazin and Abdullah, what would you think was your most challenging moment or most challenging thing during the journey? What did you find most challenging or difficult?
I think I didn't realize how physical it would be. I think it wasn't the heat. It wasn't. You certainly did. You made it very, very easy. Alhamdulillah. I mean, you were a tremendous blessing throughout this trip. That I didn't even expect. To you yourself were very important. I think it was the physicality of it, of crowds, and claustrophobia, and the fact that it was just, I didn't expect that. That was difficult. But it wasn't. It's difficult because you asked me. I just didn't. You just sort of went through it. I just sort of went through it. It didn't matter at that time, and if anything, I probably. I don't know. I think that's probably the only thing that I can think about was difficult. Otherwise, it was a wonderful, wonderful trip.
Tazin, how about you? What would you regard as having been difficult besides the bathrooms?
Well, I'm generally quite an impatient person, and I think my patience was tested with others. So I had to really be on guard to ensure that I didn't keep losing my patience with other human beings. Not you. You were good. In fact, you required no patience from us. You were great. Alhamdulillah. What a blessing.
Muneer, before you fall asleep there on us, what do you find most difficult in your trips?
The most difficult thing I find in my trips is probably the walking. The walking from Mina to Makkah. We did a few years in a row. On one of my Hajj, I think it was 2012. We started walking from Mina to Makkah, and then I realized that my feet was not taking me as far as it could. I remember you putting me sort of on your back and dragging me half the way. So that was very, very difficult. But alhamdulillah, I had you there by my side and make it easy for me, alhamdulillah. So the walking would probably be the hardest.
Tazin and Abdullah, if you had to go again, what would you do differently? Would you take the kids with you this time?
Yeah.
I would probably take the kids. Yeah, definitely. I mean, in fact, we were thinking about taking the kids as soon as possible, not for Hajj, but start like for the Umrah. But certainly, I think I agree with Brother Yusuf, whatever he said, that I would do that. We were very fortunate that we didn't socialize much. It was a short package. So that was certainly, that certainly helped us going together as opposed to myself alone. Staying together was the better decision I think we made than being separate for various reasons. I think the experience was a lot more serene. We were able to, and because we know each other, we were able to rely on each other. So I certainly, something I remember you mentioned that. I would continue that. I think definitely taking the kids, but I think spending a little bit more time or doing Medina after Mecca probably would be something I would want to do differently next time.
Yeah, I want to spend a little more time in Medina. I think that would
Definitely
be
in
lovely.
Medina, spend a lot more time, which we didn't do. I mean, this was
Yeah.
the short package.
The short package, generally, people are very busy, and they have and they go, and then because we need to get you to Makkah and to Hajj, and Medina is basically 2 days, and every single person says, "Oh, why are we so short in Medina? Why do we stay in Medina longer?" Because they don't actually understand until you get to Medina how beautiful it is. And the backdrop picture here is actually Medina. I was looking for a picture to put as our backdrop that's nice and so relaxing. And then mean you remember that one?
Yes.
Medina?
Yes.
Just so beautiful. Just walking there in the morning or the evening, and you just so yeah. For Umrah, it's beautiful to take the kids for Umrah, especially so they can see and feel that the environment is beautiful. That's the roof of Medina, and that's Umrah time. That's an Umrah picture that Farouk took. Farouk, show us some of the Hajj pictures. There's the Mina. So it just shows there the Jamarat. So this is in Mina, the tents for those who've not been. This is Mina, and it's body size sleeping for those who don't like camping. So this is the hard parts, right? This is where the people of comfort. So most of us from Australia, we love the comfort, and this is where a lot of guys struggle, and a lot of the sisters struggle. But alhamdulillah, this is on the 8th of the Hujjaj, the first day where we get to Mina, and this is how we sleep for the first time. So you've just had 5-star with sharing with your wife and husband, and then this is where you get to, and you just go, man, is this what we're going to have to do for the next 3 or 4 days? And even the strongest buckle, and we normally ask on this first day, like, okay, who's staying till the third day? And you generally have some excitement, and people say, look, I'll stay by day 2, who's going? And then there's half of that, and by day 3 who's staying, and then it's half of that again. And by the third day, when we have to stay, there's only like 2 or 3 of us staying. Alhamdulillah. Farouk, show us some of those other photos so we can talk through some of those of the Hajj there. So this is in Mecca. So one of the things we do in Mecca is generally there's a lot of sadaqah where people collect sadaqah, and then these guys here, you pay 10 riyals or 9 riyals or 12 riyals, and they make a food pack, and then we kind of hand out these food packs as sadaqah to the pilgrims, and it's amazing how there's a lot of people there that don't have a lot of money, and then we give out free the food to them as sadaqah. So when you do plan to go, take some extra money with you. This is a beautiful shot of the night in Muzdalifah. So this will be tomorrow night, where the pilgrims will be sleeping, and the 1,000 pilgrims that's there, I'm sure they're going to have like carpet and very, very luxurious time to spend there. Obviously, very, very privileged to be there. They'll be known in history for, either Hajj was closed, but there was never been a time when Hajj only had 1,000 people. So it's very, very special, I guess, in a way. That's last year in the rain. Did you get in the rain? Did you stand outside in the rain? You did, right?
Yeah.
You didn't run inside and were afraid of the water.
That was a beautiful day.
It was a very, very beautiful day. Yeah. Show us that. So there we are with Brother Ihsan from Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and we were on the scooters for the pilgrims, for people who haven't been. So on the second level of the Haram, there's an area where you can rent these scooters for those who are infirm or can't walk that far, and it's 50 riyals for the scooter to make tawaf. So I took the whole crew up there to go and try out the scooters to make tawaf on the scooters. So it doesn't go very, very fast. So, but there's a lot of accidents there. There's a lot of holes.
Yes.
Yeah, I have a few
You
run-ins
need-
in the wall there. Yeah. So alhamdulillah, they've made it easy with that. That's the very good idea. The scooters for the people who can't walk, especially for those who need wheelchairs. I generally take them up there and put them in the scooter. It's much easier. All right, let's go to Firaz. Firaz, what advice would you give for those who are still thinking about should I go or shouldn't I go?
That's easy. Look at the opportunity that's been missed this year. If you were thinking of delaying it until this year, you've missed out this year. Take the opportunity. There's really nothing to think about when it comes to ibadah or Hajj in this case. You don't know if you have tomorrow. You certainly don't know if you've got next year. And if you have an invitation, and that invitation is the inclination in your heart and the money in your pocket, if you've got those two things, you've got to do the wise thing and spend it. If you're going to travel, I wouldn't be doing Hajj with the boys. I'd be taking your wife with you. And the reason why I say that is
Susan's listening.
you come back at the... Yeah, she's outside the door. No, the reason I say that is that when you do return, you return on the same page. You're on the same level again. Because often what I've seen happen is that the man goes out and does Hajj and comes back and his wife's still not at the same page and he's feeling frustrated. Why don't you have my iman levels? You know, why aren't you praying as much as I am? Because you didn't go through the experience together. You didn't come back and reset together. So, I mean, that's my 2 bits of advice. That, I mean, if you've got an opportunity, you grab it with both hands because you don't know if that opportunity is going to come again.
Very good point.
If you do, and if you get that opportunity, you share that with your loved ones. You take your wife or you take your parents or you do that. Do whatever you can and maximize your benefit.
Yeah, I've had, there was a few instances where some couples were having problems in their marriage. And, one of the other side things I do is try to help advise
Arbitrate.
counseling, arbitration for couples. And then some of the advice I give, people start talking to me about Hajj, right? And then I say to them, why don't you guys just go for Hajj together, and explain to them how they can make that a journey where also they take the opportunity to fix their marriage. And, what a better place to do it. And alhamdulillah, I'd say it has been very successful. It's very successful remedy, so to speak. Brother Abdullah, seeing that you had a bit of trouble there making up your mind and you had to be coerced, so to speak.
No, I didn't have to.
Did you get an ultimatum, or it was just no? Just joking. What would you advise for those who are still pondering, contemplating, thinking about it? Should I? Shouldn't I go? I'm not ready. Scenario for those. What's your advice?
I mean, I agree with Brother Firaz. I would. My suggestion would be that. I mean, I don't think that I would ever have been ready. And I think it's important just to go. To me, and what I mean by this is I think I agree. There is no next year. There's no guarantee. There's I could be gone tomorrow. So if I've got the means and the ability, definitely to go. For me, it was a personal decision. I thought I wanted to be in a certain place before I made that trip. But I think I made the trip when I should have made the trip. God made that decision for me. So, and that's all I can say. That if you leave it to God's hand, He'll take you when the time is right. I think that's the best thing I can say.
Tazin?
Pretty similar along the lines of what he said, really, that everything is in God's hands. Those. I mean, we all. I think it's something we always say in our heads, but I felt the reality of it in Hajj. And I guess I wish that I had. I suppose that was my lesson to learn from Hajj, but to always bear in mind that everything is in God's hands, everything. And Hajj was almost symbolic of the rest of my life, of what's going to take place in the rest of my life. Is in everything is in God's hands.
Alhamdulillah. Brother Yusuf?
Well, I have or had a friend of mine many years ago in the early 90s who was relatively wealthy, became quite religious, relatively wealthy, and every year I'd ask him, okay, so now it's time to go to Hajj, and he kept making excuses because his business was growing and growing and growing, and Alhamdulillah, Allah took it all away from him. So while he had the opportunity to do so, Allah gave him all this opportunity and all this money. And then he kept working more and more and more and made excuses why he couldn't leave, because his business would suffer. And ultimately, Allah took all of his businesses away from him. It's been, nearly 20 odd years, and he still hadn't gone for Hajj. And Allah had given him the opportunity at that point in time to go on Hajj many times over. And he just didn't. So if Allah gives it to you and gives you the opportunity and you don't take it, that's what's going to happen. You're not going to get the opportunity again. It's an invitation that comes, and it may not come again.
In relation to that money, Muneer, can you send that photo of the box to Farouk quickly, please?
Okay.
And the reason was that people often say there's people with a lot of money, and you wonder why they don't take the time. But then there are many people who would love to go, but they don't have the money. And I often say to people, I said, "And how can we go? It's getting so expensive." And I say to people, you need to start saving. And I always give the same advice because that's what I did in the very first time. I say make a box or get another account where you put your money in, or separate your Hajj money, right? So separate your Hajj money and make your intention. Or take a money box and put. I did one for my sister many years ago when she wanted to go, and I made a box and I put around there Hajj and the year, and you just leave it in your kitchen and you start putting money in there, and it's actually amazing how that money grows and the barakah in that money. So my daughter is made intention of going, and I said to her the same thing: make this box and put your you put all your spare change. You want to buy something, you think, oh, I'll just put it in here. You buy it, put it in here, and the amount of barakah that goes into that. So for those who are thinking about it, and there is a Hajj box that my daughter did. She's put a name on there, and her husband's name, and she put Hajj 2021. So their intention is made. And the other night we were having dinner at her place, and we passed the box around. She was really embarrassed. Said, "Show me your box." And we passed it to the kids, the brothers and sisters. Say, "Put some money in. Put some money." She said, "No, this is ridiculous." But what happens is you just feel that that pressure, like you want to go buy something, buy a new shirt or something, and you just end up putting the money in there. And my brothers and sisters, I have so many beautiful stories about this particular method and how it's such a simple thing, but it works. I have seen it work so many times. So just make that intention and put your money in there. So before we finish up, brothers and sisters, if you would advise to people, what is the best thing, or what is the best thing to take with you besides patience? What is the best thing that your patience and your partner? What is the next best thing you can take with you on your Hajj trip?
A good attitude.
Good attitude. Muneer?
Yeah.
Health and lots of Panadols. Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Take what? Patience. Really, patience. I
can't choose patience.
I can't choose, but I
Yeah.
agree with Brother Yusuf completely. A good attitude.
Yeah.
Really, and I have complete faith in Allah Ta'ala that He will make everything easy for you.
Alhamdulillah. Firaz?
I think you've got to take a heart with you that's surrendered to the will of Allah, because you really don't have control over what's about to unfold. Especially when you're going for the first time, you don't exactly know what you're up for. You've read the books, but you don't actually know physically what you're up for, mentally or spiritually. And the whole experience is it's worth more than what you end up paying. It really is. And if you go with a very tense heart, questioning everything that happens, or why is this not happening? Why hasn't my food arrived? Or why is this not working the way it is? Then I think you haven't really maximized your reason for being there. So if you go and no matter what comes your way, it's alhamdulillah, you will benefit. You will connect a lot more, because it's not all 5-star. It's not all perfect. It's not all full of goodness. It's a fantastic place. The activities are great, and they're very uplifting and very cleansing. But you've got to go with a heart that's going to be open to whatever comes your way, and knowing that everything that comes your way is a gift from Allah because He's invited you. And I think if you take that to Yusuf's point, and the, Sister Tazeen and Brother Abdullah, is that if you go with an open heart, if you go with the right attitude, and you go with a bunch of patience, you're set, basically, because you're there to receive.
Jazakallah khair. So just to reflect back, Brother Yusuf, if you can think back up to 2008, tomorrow, the 9th of Dhul Hijjah, when you're on Arafah, what can you remember about that day, and what would be your closing comments for people?
What can I remember about that day?
What was special about that day, if you can remember anything about that day?
Well, I can remember many things about the day, but what was very different was the previous Hajjs I had been on. And this was like luxury because the previous Hajjs was just sand. That was it. It was sand and a mat and a tent with no aircon. I can't even remember having food. But, this one, alhamdulillah, I've got to say, if you are going to go on Hajj, especially with your wife for the first time, if you can save the extra few dollars and go on that package, it's worth 10 times more than what you're paying. Because not only will it drive you and your wife closer together, but the experience, and instead of experiencing all the additional hardships, you'll get your hardships, but it just made it just so easy compared to the first couple of times I went. It was fantastic. So I've got no doubt in, and I've done it many times, in recommending people to go on that package, and I do it over and over again. If I was going by myself, okay, maybe I may do a different package. But if I'm going with my wife and the family, 100% I would not go with anyone else except for the fact that I went with you, and Jazakallah khair for you and for Sadika and all the other helpers there. I've got to say, may Allah reward you for all your patience and for helping us with everything. It was a fantastic experience, and please make dua that I can go again with my family and we can be there with you again, inshallah.
Ameen.
Jazakallah khair. I'll pay you later for that plug.
How much is paying?
Tazeen, what do you remember from last year being on Arafah? Tomorrow you'll reflect back tomorrow and think about a year ago where you were on a special place.
It was very surreal, and not at all what I had imagined it to be, because it's very hard to imagine what it's going to be like until you're there. But it was surreal. It was surreal. Very hard to describe in words. But a day and a whole experience that had a profound impact on me and the way that I view the world and myself in the world and my role in the world.
Very good. Abdullah?
I think the most memorable thing about Arafat, apart from what everybody, I guess, experienced, is I miraculously I found myself for a few moments completely alone, which was quite interesting, because I realized, I thought, oh my God, there are millions and millions of people over here, and I think I was sort of lost in that flow, and in Arafat I just sat there, and there was a time when I just I seemed to feel like I was completely alone. And that was, I think, the most memorable thing for whatever. And Arafat obviously is symbolic of something, and that was very important for me, or memorable.
Firaz?
I actually have two memorable moments. One was from the first Hajj, where I didn't want to leave Arafah. My wife actually came to me. She said, "The buses are here. It's time to go." And I was in tears. And I started behaving like a bit of a petulant child, and I said, "Look, just go without me. I'm okay here. I want to stay." Because when they say that Allah comes down to the lowest heaven and He's telling His angels, go and ask my servants, look at them, go and ask them for what they want, and He's basically giving a blank check out. You feel that connection. You know that's true, and it's something that I didn't want to leave. My second experience was on the other Hajj that I went with you, Ismail. I ended up finding a tree that was right beside a tent, and I got myself into the tree, if you can picture that. And I was surrounded by a tree and a tent behind me, and so I stood there making dua. And I'm making dua, and I'm thinking to myself, boy, it's hot. I've got my drink bottle, I've got everything. My water bottle's starting to drop in volume, and all I'm thinking is, I'm making dua here. This better pay off, and boy, is it hot. And I kid you not, as I'm having this thought, a cool breeze blows through this tree and cools me down. And I stopped making dua, and all I remember saying to Allah was, even in my moments of when I'm whinging, you come and you cool me down. And for me, that was a lasting memory, knowing that he's at the lowest heaven. He's listening to everything I'm asking him for. He's giving me more than what I need. How can I not be grateful? And these are the memories that you will always stay with you. And what people don't realize is that, yes, Hajj is expensive, but my goodness, the value that you get out of this journey far outweighs the cost that you put into it. And people forget that it's not their money that they're spending. It's Allah's money that He's given you so that you can benefit yourself, so you can get more. And I think that's something that some people miss out on. I mean, Brother Yusuf mentioned that, the brother had so much money. He probably thought he earned it. You don't earn your money. Allah gives it to you and then tests you with it.
Yeah, it's amazing that breeze in Arafah. Actually, I have some videos. I should have sent it to Farouk to put up, where I was sitting and recording the timeline of those trees and how they just, like, in the heat. I mean, they're not moving. That the leaves are just not budging. They just, like, you can see the leaves getting hot, and then suddenly in the afternoon you see this breeze coming through, and you start seeing these leaves just moving, and it's just so fascinating. Alhamdulillah. A lot of people experience that, and I often talk about that at my lectures as well. Muneer, your memories of Arafah?
My memories of Arafah are very different in like from the time that we started going on Hajj. We used to go when Arafah was in winter, and we could spend hours standing under the tree and in the sun and in just making dua. And then to our last Hajj, which was 2017, when Arafah was more in the summer, we couldn't even go outside the tent. We stood in the tent and made down all our duas inside the tent. So that was very different from what we experienced before when we used to go. Yeah, getting quite emotional. Just thinking about that. Oh yeah, and the food in Arafah, subhanallah, is amazing. It's something that is not really, you don't really expect the buffet, the 5-star food and everything that is given to you.
Alhamdulillah. Yeah, Hajj makes people emotional, and Alhamdulillah, I would like to extend my sincerest gratitude for all of you for sharing your stories tonight. And it's beautiful because there's an expectation of what you think people are going to say, but I have to say I didn't expect half of what you guys said tonight, and you shared some very special and real moments there. And what it does is, because I don't think you know that you were going to share that so freely. But what Hajj does, it creates this bond and brotherhood and friendship between people that you suddenly, when you're talking to them, you don't realize that you're sharing intimate things of your life, of your heart, that ordinarily you wouldn't do, right? And that's what Hajj does. And as I was saying to the brothers and sisters on Sunday, that may Allah give us another opportunity to be together on Hajj. And if we can't be together on Hajj, let us be together in Jannatul Firdaus Allah.
Ameen.
And tomorrow is a very, very special day for Muslims, especially with the pandemic going around the world. And this is a test for us from Allah, and a test in a very, very different ways. So many people are being tested by being ill. Many people are being tested because some family members of them have actually died, and then some of us are not well, and we are tested. For us, it's an easy test. I mean, for me, it's an easy test. The test is that I couldn't go to something that I love going to, right? It's an easy. If you think about it, it's an easy test. It's a selfish test, so to speak, right? But I'm not sad because I can't go. I know that Allah has a reason for us not being there, and I know what's sad for me is the worry that that we are not part of the cause for Allah having stopped us from going. But I know that what I miss the most in this trip or not going is that adrenaline and that help that we give to all the people and the people who are going for Hajj every year, and that is what I miss. And that is what makes me feel not sad. I don't feel sad. I very seldom get sad, but I just I don't know what to say. But the loss of you got a job, and then suddenly you're not on shift. Like you got the shift. You got a shift to do something, and you love doing this shift. You love doing this work, right? And suddenly you didn't get the shift. You can't call up the boss and say, "How come I didn't get the shift?" Right? But inshallah, tomorrow I make dua that Allah gives the health and strength to be able to fast. And you can guess what our duas are tomorrow, right? So jazakallah khairan for your time, everybody, and may Allah grant you every success in your life. Protect your children, grant everybody hidayah, and for those who haven't been on Hajj who's listening to us tonight, please, if you want to go next year, be quick, because as we can see, there's going to be reduced numbers, and people will be fighting to go next year, I think. Hopefully, I make dua that we will be able to go next year, inshallah.
Inshallah.
So, jazakallah khair for your time tonight, and wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to everybody who is listening to us.
Alaikum salam.
Assalamu alaikum.